Hello, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to Satsang. Satsang is an ancient spiritual practice from India. It means being in reality together. I give Satsang live every Wednesday and Sunday night in Portland, Maine. This Dharma talk was recorded during one of our Wednesday night gatherings. Please visit jayakula.org to learn more about the teachings. You can find video satsangs on Jayakula's YouTube channel, and my books are all available on Amazon.com. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. Most of you probably know that the word guru means heavy. And we can think about the 5 functions of reality, or the 5 modes of activity of reality in this tradition: creation, destruction, maintenance, withdrawal, and emission. And the quality of heavy of the guru relates most to destruction. In order to be released from our tensions, we have to be willing to undergo a process of destruction. Something has been built up over many lifetimes, perhaps. You've built up certain attachments and identifications. You've cobbled together some sort of vaguely workable life. Very vaguely in some cases. You've cobbled together, stitched together, polished and preened a pseudo-workable personality. You have some cherished ideas about yourself. They're like the tchotchkes sitting in the cabinet at your grandmom's. You know how you go to your grandmom's and there's this hideous little piece of china. It looks like some sort of gnome. It's probably got like a pink nose and a green hat or something. And you think, Grandma, you really should get rid of that stuff. And Grandma's like, no! I love that thing. And all of these things that you've cobbled together, all of these habits of body, energy, and mind that you've cobbled together over all these lifetimes are in the way of you experiencing your own essence nature and the fecundity and vast communicative aspect of life. So it's not like they say in the yoga classes, you have to open your heart chakra. You actually have to have this thing that you've cobbled together taken away. Right? It's actually much more destructive than just opening something. I always say open your heart, but do you know what it takes to do that? You have to rip away the blinders, all the shutters that have your heart encased in darkness. Sometimes it's a beautiful, gentle process, but a lot of the times it's a beautiful, destructive process. So if you really want that, if you really want to be out of your cobbled together prison of ideas and habits of body, energy, and mind, then you do something really, really wacky, which is you kind of sign up with somebody to help you do that. You sign up with, a demolition expert. But nonetheless, having signed up with a demolition expert, you still complain about the demolition process. So we have to be open to darkness. We have to be open to heaviness. We have to be open to chaos. We have to be open to humiliation. We have to be open to pain. In addition to everything else, right? Creation, maintenance, and destruction. You can't leave out the destruction part. And it isn't going to go on your terms. Okay, I'll give you this one little tchotchke, but the rest of them are off limits. The process doesn't work like that. If you want to play that way, the Divine Mother in her infinite mercy will play that way with you if you insist upon it. If you insist on being in control of the demolition. All it means is you're prolonging your agony. But if that's what you want, that's what you'll get. One of the bigger obstacles in this Demolition Derby, one of the things that will make you come in, not first or second, but last, is your insistence on being understood the way you want to be understood. Or even your insistence on being understood correctly. So there's kind of two things that happen. And this is for those of you who don't have a deep, natural feeling for how this process works in terms of the demolition part. Some people are born with an understanding and just a feeling for how this whole thing works, right? But not that many people, I don't think. And we can understand it intellectually, but we have to really grok it on a deep level. So there's two kinds of obstacles around the question of understanding and misunderstanding. One is that you think just because you've said something in a certain way that you have to be responded to on your own terms. That is false. You may have said something totally irrelevant. You may have said something, and as teacher, I'm hearing that in so many different ways, whatever it is you're saying. And the response that comes is the response that is not to validate what you've said or support you in what you've said or give you a little mini psychotherapy session. But if the process is actually working and you're open to it, it's actually something to actually just get in there and destroy whatever you are clinging to. It's an intervention. It's an action. It's like a chemical agent, not blah, 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 blah. Presumably, if the teacher has any real insight, they're hearing a lot of things and seeing a lot of things and experiencing a lot of things that aren't so obvious to you. So if you're having a reaction, like the teacher isn't understanding me, or that wasn't what I meant, or oh, that was mean, or something like that. I just meant da-da-da. You're off track. You're just off track. Your job as a student in a tantric tradition who presumably gets some of this, because you're here and you haven't run out screaming, your job is to deal with your reactivity, recognize it as reactivity, and recognize that you don't want to be reactive. You're trying to wake up. You're not trying to cling to your reactivity. And your second job is to feel around and use your mind and use your senses for what is the teacher really trying to do? How is the teacher working with me? That's your job. So that's one situation. That's the situation, and there's like that, what I'm talking about has vast instances. The situation is the teacher really is there with you and is responding to you appropriately and is trying to do something to help you. And it just doesn't look like what you want it to look like. Right. And so you have some ordinary mind reaction like, oh, the teacher doesn't understand what I said. The teacher probably all too well understands what you just said and is responding to what's actually important in the situation. This is my own experience. The other situation is The teacher actually doesn't understand what's going on in some particular instance, right? I mean, nobody, or very, very few of us teachers are totally enlightened. So things are going to happen that we literally do not understand. You know? And what is your job in that case? To feel hurt? To run around explaining yourself more? To criticize the teacher? No, your job is exactly the same as in the first instance. Look at your own reactivity. Try to drop it. Right? Try to see what the wisdom is in the situation. Because even if from a dualistic perspective, even if in some instance the teacher has totally misinterpreted you, and I'll give you the mother of all instances of this. Some of you have heard this story already. But I have this very weird history with Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche. He has come in my dreams so many times and given me beautiful teachings and this beautiful relationship in dreams. But whenever I have seen him in person, it's been a disaster of complete miscommunication and misunderstanding. So the first time I saw him in person, I went to Peru. And I did a divination before I went, which said, do not go, it will not work out well. Yeah. Well, I needed a lot of dental work, and I had a frequent flyer ticket. You know, it's a lot cheaper to go to Peru, it turns out, with frequent flyer miles. It was the only, spot with dental tourism that I could actually afford with my free miles, and I didn't have much money at the time. So I actually I didn't go actually ignoring the divination. I went knowing that it was probably going to be disastrous on some level. And that was just what I was signing on for. So I got all this dental work, but at the retreat, it was the only time I've ever seen Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche at the end of a teaching ask if anybody had a question. I'm sure he has at other times, but not while I was around. And so I had a question, and I asked the question, and he completely, first of all, he turned to somebody beside him. He was really far away on the stage. And he asked, I could hear him through the microphone, what did she say? And somebody mumbled something. I didn't hear what the other person said that I said. But he got extremely angry, and there was about 800 people there. He got extremely angry and yelled at me and basically called me an idiot in front of 800 people. He didn't use that word, but that was the gist of the whole experience, right? I knew I had been misheard, misunderstood, but it wasn't, the situation isn't me and Rinpoche. The situation is God. Right? Being misunderstood has been one of the greatest lessons of my life. I have often been misunderstood. I have often been vilified via misunderstanding. And these have been some of the best experiences in terms of my sadhana in my life. People have accused me of things that I absolutely did not do. People have treated me in heinous ways just because they were crazy. People have accused me of stuff like being psychotic, when, obviously that isn't true. I mean, a lot of things have happened like that since I was a young person, not just as now. And every single time it's been enormously important for me in terms of my development, spiritually. So when you are sitting in front of a teacher and you absolutely are convinced you have been misunderstood, or just another person, it doesn't have to be a teacher, your response, you get out of ordinary mind. The Divine Mother has just orchestrated this situation for you. It is not about, you misunderstood me. It is about, the Divine Mother orchestrated this situation where I actually have been misunderstood, and now what am I going to do with that? Am I going to stomp around? Am I going to explain myself? Am I going to demand this crazy person understand me? What am I going to do when all these terrible feelings arise about having been misunderstood? Because for sure they do. You want to do something about it, right? Your responsibility is exactly the same as in the first situation where you actually have been understood, but just not on the terms that you demand. responsibility is always to examine your own reactivity, discover what is to be learned in this situation, discover the wisdom for you in the situation, relax your tensions, move through it in a way that helps your sadhana. Those of you that have more spiritual wisdom, when something like this happens with a teacher, you will either within 30 seconds or a minute or maybe instantly know what it is that's happening. You will maybe have your reaction, and then a little while after that, but not too long, you'll know exactly why you have been spoken to that way by God. And you'll feel grateful, even though it's very, very difficult. Those of you who are newer on the path, or just more stubborn, have more stubborn karmas, will continue to insist that your perspective is valid. It is not. It is only valid at your level. As Ma said, everything is valid from its own point of view. But that's not saying much. That's just saying, I'm going to insist on remaining in this condition that I'm in. You are living in a web of enlightened conversation. Everything you encounter in your life, every circumstance, every person, everything you do, everything anybody says to you, every bird flying by, every breeze, is an aspect of that enlightened conversation. When you insist that it's all very ordinary and that you have to be understood from your level, you're basically opting out of the conversation. Everything that happens is an aspect of wisdom. Every situation in which you are spoken to or addressed by another human being or nature in any form or any circumstance that happens to you is wisdom speaking to you. That's God speaking to you. No matter how difficult it is. Right? And if you want to wake up, if that's actually your goal, then without exception in any circumstance, you are going to be looking for, what is the wisdom here for me? Not, how can I be understood better? How can I be right? How can I prove my point? How can I get out of this? This is so unfair. Whatever it is that you go through, you are opting out of the conversation if you allow yourself to persist in that kind of reactivity, for more than a minute. Right? You can catch your reactivity. And if you're actually in the practice, you will then immediately reorient yourself toward what is here for me, what am I being shown? And it's sometimes very painful. You don't, always want to be shown that channel. But if you're actually in this practice, that's what you're doing anyway. That's a huge part of unbroken practice, Akhanda sadhana. Right? You're never insisting on small self's point of view because you understand that it's small. Again, some people have a natural feeling for this from whatever karmic circumstance, right? And some people don't, and I'm not actually sure how helpful it is to talk about this because, you're ready when you're ready on one level. But on another level, it's good to know what this is actually about and what circumstance you're actually in and what options you have. You're not here to insist on yourself. If you don't have confidence that the teacher can help you in this process, then, that's another story. You should, by all means, find somebody else, right? The only thing I want is for people to experience what I've experienced and more. So that is the only thing I want. Not everybody can go on to this full on. Everybody is in a different condition, right? And then, you have to meet the right person to help you in this way. And not everybody is ready for that. And that's why we have all different other kinds of traditions. Why do you think we have a so-called American Buddhism? People who have sanghas with no teachers. I feel sad for people who have no teachers just because I love teachers. But on another level, that's just another expression of God. On one ordinary mind level, it's easier to have a sangha with no teacher. Long term, it's much harder. But that's what those people need. They need something less challenging. But this tradition is extremely challenging. And the people who have a natural feeling for it and want that challenge, ask for it. If you come, like on Sunday satsangs, we've been doing a different format recently. And it's working out really well. And a lot of people have expressed, please come, I want to hear the worst. Of course, it doesn't work like that. I don't have a filing cabinet in my mind of things that I'm waiting to tell anybody. Everything for me is just happening spontaneously like that. It's very rarely that I'm thinking ahead about something I'm going to say to somebody. So whatever comes out of my mouth in that moment is what comes out of my mouth in that moment. I can't order up fierceness. Try to understand, at least, that when you insist on your perspective, then you are stuck with your perspective. And if you have a feeling that maybe the teacher has a broader perspective, possibly, then give it a shot. Give it a shot not defending yourself and insisting on yourself. Give it a shot looking at what's happening with you and working with it and trying to find the wisdom in whatever situation is occurring between you and me, but also between each other. And just as you're going around your day, there's a lot of wisdom being communicated in those situations too. But we have to stop defending ourselves. Because what are we defending? The very thing we say we're trying to get rid of. I said in the beginning there's two circumstances, one in which the teacher actually has more insight than you do, and you've just mistaken it for a mistake, basically, because you're insisting on your perspective. The other is the situation where the teacher actually doesn't understand you in that moment. And I started out saying there are these two situations, but they're not. They're the same situation. Your job is the same in either case. Deal with your reactivity, relax your tensions, find the wisdom, and try to feel your way into that being your condition.
Jayakula is a nonprofit community offering opportunities to learn and practice in the direct realization traditions of Trika Shaivism and Dzogchen. We are based in Portland, Maine and Portland, Oregon. Visit jayakula.org to explore more of our offerings.